Doechii presents Lady Gaga with the Innovator Award at the iHeartRadio Awards, and I give you my current pop star power ranking. All that and more coming up on the Pop Pod. It is Wednesday, the 19th of March, and I am Pop Sam Camp. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are joining me from. Thank you for tuning in to the Pop Pod. We have a big episode today, lots of news to get through, and then I'm going to give you my first pop star power ranking. A little bit more on that later, but for now, if you're not subscribed yet, please hit subscribe or hit follow, and also drop a review wherever you are listening to this podcast, whether that be on Spotify, Apple, or also YouTube, where I've got the video version of this up. I really appreciate the support, and it's been very fun doing this. For the last week, let's get into the headlines.
Gaga taught us that it was okay to be our real selves, to try new things, to try anything, to speak out and to create.
Lady Gaga collected the Innovator Award at the iHeartRadio Awards, and she was presented it by Doechii, who gave a very, very sweet dedication to her in the lead up to the award. Gaga then came and accepted it and gave a pretty great acceptance speech about being a pop star in her late 30s and how people feel like that means you're already done in pop terms, but she's only just getting started. I thought she just really nailed the whole thing. Here's a little clip of it.
Every artist who's ever been told they're different, complicated, or too much, please never change. Break the mold. The world doesn't need another copy. It desperately needs your original. Thank you.
Lollapalooza has announced their 2025 lineup. The Chicago Festival is going very pop heavy this year with basically an all pop headliner roster. We've got Chapel. We don't have Chappell Roan. That is a lie. We've got Sabrina Carpenter. We've got Olivia Rodrigo. We've got Gracie Abrams. And we've got Doechii. And then there's so much good stuff as you scale down the lineup. We've got Raven Lenae. We've also got Marina. We've got an act that I love called Jane Remover. Then you've got Role Model. You've got Phineas. There is just so much to unpack in this lineup. You can check that out on my Instagram if you want to see more of it. Speaking of Marina, we have a new Marina song coming on Friday. It's called Cupid's Girl. It's the second new song that she's dropped this year following on from Butterfly. She is now an independent artist off her record label and doing whatever the hell she wants. There is a snippet for this. Have a listen. Wet Leg, the UK duo who had a very, very strong debut album, are finally back and they're teasing their new song. Here's what it sounds like. And finally, Charli XCX has been revealed to be one of the collaborators on Selena Gomez's forthcoming album, I Said I Love You First with Benny Blanco. The two of them have actually crossed paths once before when Charli XCX wrote Same Old Love from Selena Gomez's Revival, but they've never really, or as far as I know, been in the studio together. So I am very intrigued to hear how this one turns out. We will find that out when Selena drops her album at the end of the week. On to the chart update, and Raven Lenae, who was on the podcast last week, is number 17 on the Bubbling Under charts on the Billboard Hot 100. This, in other words, means that she's a number 117 with her song Love Me Not that has been going viral on TikTok. This is very cool. I would love to see her in the charts, and the way she's heading, she could be there next week. Playboi Carti is projected to debut at number 1, no surprises there, on the Billboard Hot 100 with his new album Music. He is set to debut with over 300,000 copies, which will give him one of the strongest debuts of the year. It will overtake Lady Gaga's Mayhem and potentially put him in second place just behind The Weeknd's Hurry Up Tomorrow. On to Chappell Roan, and The Giver, her new song has rebounded to number 4 on the US Spotify charts and number 22 on the global Spotify charts. It is doing very well. Pink Pony Club is still in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. It is all flying right now for Chappell Roan. let's get on to the main part of the podcast, which is a part I am very excited about because I will be doing this monthly. Every month, I am going to give you my pop star power ranking. Basically, what this means is I'm going to give you my 5 pop stars ranked, and this is based on how well they're doing in the charts, how well they're doing in the press, how well they're doing with the critics, how well they're doing on TikTok, basically everything combined together to give you who I think are the most trending pop stars right now. So without further ado, here are who I think are the top 5 most important pop stars right now in this very moment. In number 5, I have gone with Doechii.
Wake up, A cup, get your tits up in my makeup, face fuck, get your bake up, fake bluff, fake tough, niggas dicks up, put your 6 up for the motherfucking princess.
I think Doechii has had a phenomenal few months off the back of the Grammy Awards where she performed and also won Best Rap Album, but it just continues to get better for her. She's Woman of the Year, according to Billboard already. Anxiety and Denial is a River are both on the Billboard Hot 100. Anxiety debuted at number 13, which is the sign of like a real budding star. I don't even think Chappell Roan's The Giver is going to debut that high. So that is incredibly impressive. Denial is a River is sitting just outside of the top 20, but continues to collect such impressive streams. On top of that, she's got Coachella coming up. And then on top of that, as I said at the top of the podcast, she presented Lady Gaga with an award. Lady Gaga responded very favorably, is obviously a fan of Doechii, so she is in with all the right people. I think that she is having an absolutely phenomenal year, and I expect to see her scale up this power ranking even further in the next couple months. In number 4, I've got SZA. I mean, SZA just does not go away in the best way possible. SOS this week broke Michael Jackson's record for the longest time spent in the top 10 by a black artist. She overtook Thriller, and I just think this album just continues to keep giving, but it's actually her collaboration with Kendrick Lamar that I think lands her on this power ranking this week because she is spending her 4th week at number 1 with Luther, her collaboration with Kendrick off GNX, but she's also in the top 20 with 30 for 30, and All the Stars is also charting right now. So she is all over the Billboard Hot 100. I just think that she is one of these artists that is just going to be able to keep delivering hits for the next couple years like she's just cashing checks easy. She is so likable right now. She's absolutely everywhere. She's about to head out on her first stadium tour with Kendrick Lamar, and you could not ask for a more perfect time for this to happen, given that the two of them currently have the number 1 record in the US. Number 3, I have Chappell Roan.
'Cause you ain't gotta tell me, it's just in my nature, so take it like a taker, 'cause baby, I'm a giver.
Chappell Roan's album now, The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess, that was released back in September of 2023. We are like well over a year and a half past the release date of that album, and it is still in the top 10 of the Billboard 200, which I think is incredibly impressive. But on top of that, this week, Pink Pony Club continues to spend time in the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 and at number 1 on the UK charts. And then on top of that, we have The Giver that has done incredibly well. It debuted with over 6 million streams on its first day, which really solidifies her place as one of the main pop stars right now, in my opinion. I spoke about that on Friday's podcast, if you haven't heard it and you want to go back and hear that. But I think it just basically shows that people are so invested in whatever Chappell Roan's doing right now. It doesn't matter what genre she is acting in, whether that be country or pop, they will sign up to it. And that is the sign of a pop star that is going a long, long way. Over the summer, she's set to headline a bunch of festivals, including Primavera Sound. I think festivals are where you really see her shine. It's where the story started for her last year when you had those incredible moments, like at Coachella and also at Lollapalooza. So I expect that she could keep scaling up this ranking as well. Number 2, it's Lady Gaga.
I
obviously Mayhem is number 1 this week on the Billboard 200. She did almost 250K in sales, which is incredibly impressive right now for a pop star who has now been around for decades. And I just feel like there is a general renaissance for Lady Gaga right now. She's finding new fans in Gen Alpha and Gen Z who are going back and streaming her past work and finding out like what she's been doing and the kind of sound that she created that she really celebrates on Mayhem, I think. I think a lot of the songs on Mayhem have this kind of like victory lap sort of way to them, in the sense that she is using elements of sounds that she's used on previous albums and just like using them to show how much of a sound she has carved for herself, how individual, and how the Lady Gaga sound just cannot be replicated. And that is enough to land her in number 2, I think. But on top of that, she also has the longest running number 1 on the global Spotify charts right now with Die With A Smile. She's also the second most listened to artist on Spotify. Die With A Smile is still number 1 on the global 200, the biggest songs in the world. I just think that it has been a phenomenal year for her. She's got Coachella coming up. That is set to be a massive headline splash as well. Let's move on to number 1 though. And in number 1, I've put Kendrick Lamar.
Hey, Roman numeral 7, babe, drop it like it's hot. This world was mine, I take your dreams and make them multiply. This world was mine, I take your enemies in front of God.
I know that there will be some people saying that Kendrick Lamar is not a pop star, but when you're making this much of a splash and you're taking over the mainstream in this way, you just operate in pop by default because he is just everywhere, and for good reason. Luther, as I said, spends a 4th week at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, but you still have Not Like Us in the top 5. And on top of that, he has another one in the top 10 with TV Off. Then he has Squabble Up. He also has All of the Stars, all in the Billboard Hot 100. Like, he is absolutely dominating. On top of that, GNX remains in the top 5. I think GNX was released way back in November. So this album is going the distance, and he still seems to have a lot of hype surrounding him following that Super Bowl performance. This is an artist who I feel like reached his peak around Humble. Humble was years ago now, and then he released Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and I think that album was a little bit like complicated for some people, and he didn't quite reach the commercial highs of his previous projects, but he's just come back in a huge way. Obviously, the Drake beef has helped it. Drake continues his lawsuit with Universal right now, saying that they helped promote Kendrick's song, Not Like Us. Kendrick kind of remains incredibly bothered, but also unbothered. Like, he's not pulling those same kind of tactics, but he is just running off his success. He also was a surprise guest on the Playboi Carti album last week, Music, and I think that's kind of Kendrick stepping outside of his box and working with someone who perhaps people wouldn't have expected him to work with a couple years ago, and doing a phenomenal job as well. And I just don't think you can say that anybody has more of a cultural impact right now. It is all about Kendrick Lamar. And for this month's Power Ranking, I put him at number 1. If you want to let me know what your ranking is, comment on this podcast. I think you can do it on Spotify. Otherwise, I'll throw this video up on TikTok where you can comment. If you're on YouTube, you can comment. Find a way to do it, and I will respond to you in some kind of way. Let me know what I got wrong. Let me know what I got right. Let's move on to part of today's podcast that I'm excited about, though, and that is an interview with somebody who's made one of my favorite albums of 2025. Her name is Rose Gray. She is a British artist who has made this phenomenal pop record. If you're not familiar, it's called Louder Please, and it is just a collection of really tight, euphoric kind of post-midnight pop songs that just hit from start to finish. It is really a non-skip album, and I highly encourage you to listen to it. She co-wrote one of the singles, Angels of Satisfaction, with Justin Tranter, who of course co-wrote Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan last year, and it's got that same kind of really just tight pop writing on it.
Just enough makes you heavenly. If you want too much, then it's misery. 'Cause we seem too much throughout this
while you check it out, well, actually don't check it out now because you should listen to this interview first. I spoke to her last year ahead of the release of this album, and we talked through the record, my favorite moments from it, her favorite moments from it. Here's the chat now. Tell me the 3 moments that we need to be like locked into when we're listening to this album.
Okay, so a moment that I'm very proud of on the record is a song called Everything Changes But I Won't.
Yeah.
It is probably the only love song on the record, and it's ethereal and it's quite minimal, but the middle 8, which is actually I think what you guys call the bridge.
Yes.
I don't need your best behavior. Hold me close and don't go changing.
A lot of Bridge fans out there, I know that
I'm the biggest Bridge fan. Like
I am too.
it's always my favorite part in a song.
Which is good because they're disappearing, I feel like. People are like into this 2-minute song thing, and I need the full package.
It is, yeah. And it's a place where you can just completely lose yourself.
Yeah.
And you can go to a different key. You can even, it could become like a sort of electronic record, even if it's a ballad.
Yeah. It also feels like the album is like really either like you're kind of in the club, euphoria, late night sort of thing, or you're like outside really like enveloped by the nature. I feel like there's like those two sides of it, which I really like.
Definitely the juxtaposition that I sort of have in my personality as well. It's like the party, the rave, and then the more sort of, at home,
Soak up the rave.
meditating, in the feels, probably come down.
Yeah, we can't be chaotic all the time. What's the second moment?
Second moment would have to be on Angel of Satisfaction. There is this moment after the chorus, I call it a tag. It just goes into like an explosive R. It gives me, I used to sing in choirs. It feels like almost religious.
Yes.
I can sort of picture.
I mean, the closest we
me.
come to finding religion at this age is on the dance floor, I think.
Most certainly. And I wrote Angel with Justin Tranter, and when we got to that part in the song, we both just started screaming.
Yeah.
I think it feels really familiar. I do love that moment. And I think a third part of a song that I'm very proud of on the record would have to be, there's a song called Louder Please, and it's named
Love
after
that
the
one.
album. It's the last track on the record, and I wanted to do something that was quite instrumental. So I really worked on just creating like space and sort of trying to tell the story of the whole record, but with music rather than vocal.
Yeah.
And I really, really love that track. And my little cousin's voice, she says, "Could you play it a little louder,
Oh,
please?"
that's her.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cute.
Yeah.
Can you play it a little louder, please?
I think, the album is called Louder Please because I am always searching for more, whether it's louder music or more adventure or just like running forward in my career. So to have like this little innocent voice say, "Could you play a little
It's
louder,
nice.
please?"
It's humbling.
Yeah, it's quite humbling after the journey that I take you on for the whole record, or I've taken myself on.
Where do we need to be for anybody who hasn't heard this album yet? Where do we need to be when we're going to listen to it for the first time?
Pre-drinking
Yes.
before a night out, or not pre-drinking because not everyone drinks. Just pre-partying,
charging.
Yeah, pre-charging.
In whichever way you charge.
But also, I feel like, out and about on the streets, on a train, on a subway.
Yeah. Anywhere, honestly.
Honestly,
yeah,
I
anywhere.
really think that you can listen
the
to
pop
this
music
anywhere.
that's this good can be
Anywhere.
listened to anywhere.
And of course, the club.
Of course.
I really hope that all my favorite DJs and people play it in the clubs.
Everything changes, but I won't when the party stops being fun.
That is it for today's Pop Pod. I will be back tomorrow with a look at what new music we're going to be getting. this week. If you liked anything from the podcast this week, make sure you let me know, rate and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow.
Does everything change?